basic human relationships. So how can you lead if you don't understand the people who you want them to put you in a leadership role? And then I've had over 35 years of experience in leadership in the Australian Air Force Cadet system. I was a member of the Air Force Reserve very early on, 1972. I think I was only 10 then, but...
Yeah.
And that's a structured form of leadership. Very straight, hierarchical. You've got the rank on your shoulder, then you are a leader. So some of them think. I've learned from the structured leadership to the leadership of humanity, the humble leadership, how those two get married together. Because certainly in any military fashion, leadership is conferred and then expected. And I got to say, I'm proud to say, I got to be the Commander of Australia for the Australian Air Force Cadets. That was my last gig. I had to hang that up when I got elected mayor. And because I couldn't do two jobs at the one time. But that was 1,000 uniformed staff, 400 volunteers, around 8,000 cadets on 190 units around Australia. So you learn the structured leadership role, but you then also learn from the life journey to get me to that, which was in 2013. The life journey to get me to that was about how you need to be humble, how you need to listen to everybody in your life if you expect to be a leader. Then to apply that into a structured hierarchy was an interesting paradigm. And I suspect it's pretty much the same in churches and all denominations, because there's a hierarchical structure in most denominations. But then you as leaders in the Christian world, you've really got to impact to be a leader at the very base level of humanity. To be able to say the people that I want to lead within this hierarchical structure have the basic human needs that we as leaders need to be able to reflect on and then deliver. From the hierarchical sense in the military, I learned some of the core values of leadership which can be applied across the world. Character, vision, behaviour, confidence. And if we can have leaders with character and vision and behaving properly and are confident in what they do, then that does inspire followership. But look around the world today. How desperate is leadership needed? When you look at the autocratic leaders who are rattling the sabres in the world, you look at the populist leaders or people who want to be leaders who are rattling that populist tree all the time, and the struggle for democratic leaders who want to reflect the will of the public, it is becoming increasingly important that leadership in today's world is going to be and will be in the very near future extremely critical to the way the world meets the following challenges. And we all know what they are. The challenges of globalisation, the challenges of humanity. I had people in my office in the last week saying from the CSIRO's perspective that by 2050 we won't be able to feed the numbers of people in the world. We simply won't be able to do that. Last week the world population hit 8 billion. When it gets to 10 billion, we cannot produce enough food in the world. So there's huge leadership required to get us out of that bind. How are we going to feed the people of the world? And what will that do to the geopolitical influences in the world when the people who are struggling to feed their masses look to other areas of the world which aren't as populated and have great vast tracts of land that could be turned over to food production? There's huge challenges coming. So congratulations for coming together, for wanting to talk about grassroots leadership, because that's where it's very important in my view. Grassroots leadership, community leadership, reflecting the will of the people in a true democratic society is what is going to be critical for our communities and our nations in the future. The other things that have guided me, quite simple. Have you heard of a poem called The Calf Path? Has anybody heard of that by Sam Foss? It's tremendous. I'm going to read it to you because I use this a lot. I use it at schools a lot, just to try and focus young minds about their life in the future. It's called The Calf Path by Sam Foss. One day through the primeval wood, a calf walked home as good calves should. He made a trail, all bent askew, a crooked trail as all calves do. Since then, 300 years have fled, and I infer the calf is dead. But still he left behind his trail, and thereby hangs my moral's tale. The trail was taken up the next day by a lone dog that passed that way, and then a wise bellwether sheep pursued the trail over vale and steep. And through the flock behind him too, as all the good bellwethers do. And from that day, over hill and glade, through those old woods, a path was made. Many men, this is written a long time ago, so insert people, and many men wound in and out, and dodged and turned and bent about, and uttered words of righteous wrath, because 'twas such a crooked path. Still they followed, do not laugh, the first migrations of that calf. And through this winding woodway stalked, because he wobbled when he walked, the forest path became a lane that bent and turned again. And this crooked lane became a road where many a poor horse with his load toiled on beneath the burning sun and travelled some 3 miles in one. And thus, a century and a half, they trod the footsteps of that calf. The years went on and swiftness went, the road became a village street, and this before people were aware, a city's crowded thoroughfare. And soon the central street was this of a renowned metropolis, and people 2 centuries and a half trod on the footsteps of that calf. Each day 100,000 followed the zigzag calf about, and over this crooked journey went the traffic of a continent. 100,000 people were led by one calf near 3 centuries dead. They followed still his crooked way and lost 100 years a day. For thus such reverence is lent to a well-established precedent. A moral lesson this might teach, were I ordained and called to preach. For people are prone to go it blind along the calf path of the mind, and work away from sun to sun to do what others have always done. They follow in that beaten track and in and out and forth and back, and still their devious course pursue to keep the path that others do. They keep that path a sacred groove, along which all their lives they move. But how the old wood gods must laugh who first saw that primeval calf. Many things this tale might teach, but I'm not ordained to preach. So that's the calf path. And I've always found that to be a very significant life story about we only get one chance at this. And as leaders, if we can encourage people to get out of that calf path of the mind, stop doing what other people have done always, and be individuals, have a vision and a passion for their journey in life. And the other piece that I'll leave you with that's been a formative part of the way I look at life and look at leadership. Ralph Waldo Emerson, very prominent writer, last century, came out of America. He had this to say that I've always had printed and up in my office at home. Because leadership is always about success for a lot of people. And sure, leadership does deliver success. It depends what you think about success and what does it mean. But leadership and success always tends to go together. Doesn't matter whether it's the autocratic leader wanting to conquer another country or the democratic leader wanting to pull a nation, a people, a community out of poverty. Leadership and success, you need to think about those terms, but what does it mean to you? This is what Emerson said: to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and to endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether it's by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know that even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. That is to be successful.
Wow.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving up your time to be a part of a leadership conference. Thank you for what you do in our community. Thank you for being able to see a future that delivers something at the grassroots level of our community, and that's for people to be able to change their lives, to live a better life, and make, therefore, our community a better community. Thanks for the invite to be here today, and have a great conference.